One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Let's pick up our conversation with Kevin Anderson, former Director of Athletics at University of Maryland and United States Military Academy. Right, so we've seen a lot of that when people get hired to the chair. They talk about the listening tour or their listening days, which is usually the first 90 to 100 days. Now, you mentioned about that time when you went on an interview and one of the people who were interviewing you mentioned that you didn't have a plan. What should someone do who is going into an interview about that part of the interview, about the plan? It seems like those interviewing them want to hear some semblance of a plan and what they plan on doing if they were to get the job. What do you suggest people do going into that type of situation?
Yeah, as we prepare, and we understand what we read, and, if we know people that are affiliated with the particular organization and listen and get some feedback from them. And then I believe that we all go in and we talk about what our vision is and how we are going to lead the people in there to establish ourselves and create a plan and expectations to be successful through our vision. I believe that's what you need to talk about, and that's what you need to do. And then, there's some things that are just clear cut that this organization stands for this, and they're part of this, and they've had this kind of success. I think you talk and you ramp up those areas. But there's certain things that I don't think you could come in and make assumptions and just put down there on the table and it feel good for everybody who's working there. I believe that's what you need to look at. There's a book that I read that talks about extraordinary influence and how you bring out the best in others. And so I think that's what you need, and that's how you go in. And the only way you do that is that you have to be part of the culture. And you know what? You look at it, and if the culture, and going back, if the culture is not good, you'll see that when you need to. And that's when you start having the influence and you talk about your vision and how you see you change that. And if the culture is good, then it's about how do you apply yourself and how do you influence yourself to even make it better.
Right. Okay.
So, I don't think this is rocket science. It's not difficult. I believe that great leaders know how to influence and know how to transform lives and people. But the thing that I think is most important is that you have to develop trust. And once you develop trust, people will follow and they'll want what you want because they know that you have their best interest at heart and that they'll continue to strive to complete and be successful in the mission.
Exactly. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was vulnerability. One thing I've always wondered when it comes to athletic directors, if you have to make a decision, you always want to check with the president on making a decision. But what if you needed some advice specifically about running the department that's not necessarily in the president's area of concern, right? They have so many things, but you want advice from someone who is leading a big organization similar to the president or chancellor. Vulnerability in terms of asking a question for some type of advice. Would you advise going to a president or chancellor, or do you stick with the people that are other athletic directors on other campuses? How does that process work when you get to that level of leadership, when you ask for advice? And it's really showing a vulnerability to those who lead you, I guess.
So what I learned is that the most important thing you could do when you go into a job is find out, research, ask, what kind of person are you going to be working with? And that's so important because that person is going to be your mentor. He's going to lead you. He's going to be your friend. He's going to be your confidant. And you succeed if they succeed, and they succeed if you succeed. So going into a situation and sitting down and just saying, this is what I see, this is what I feel, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What would you do? Do you agree with me? Do you see things differently? Am I not seeing the entire picture? How would you approach it? And, if you have that kind of relationship and they have that kind of respect for you, I just think that creates a further bond, and they'll feel better about you because you're able to do that. I see people who fail. The chemistry between those that they work with or for is not good. So if you can't be vulnerable, then sometimes you have to look at you have fear. The worst thing to do is having fear with people that you work with and for. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to work, and you're going to see limited, if no, success. So, that's the thing, that good leaders are able to be vulnerable. Good leaders are able to have people tell them when they don't think they're heading down the right path and be able to adjust and adapt. I think that will show you that any person who's able to do that, they're successful in life, and people are willing to be led by them because they see that, they feel it, they understand it, and they want to be part of it.
Do you have a definition for vulnerable? Willing to be led even though you're a leader, or willing to adjust through input and feedback, or admit that you may be doing something wrong? How would you define vulnerable in leadership terms?
Being vulnerable is being able to share what you're truly feeling, and that if you do have some fear, you do have some concern, or you don't think that you have done the right thing, and being able to put that out there and have people give you feedback on it and being able to accept it, that shows strength. When you're able to put yourself in that position, that shows just how strong that you are. It's people that don't want to have feedback, don't want to have fear about what they're doing, not confident, but won't ask people, won't share with people, don't want to be embarrassed. Because, sometimes you go out there and you might have made a bad decision, and it can be embarrassing, and that you're willing to show people that, okay, well, you know what, this wasn't the best thing, or I don't think it's good now, and, I need you to tell me how you see it and how you think that we can fix it and move on. That's a true leader who could take that on, accept it, and then take other people's advice and knowledge and fix it and have it be successful in that realm. So that's how I see. That would be my definition.
Which I think is a great definition. Well, this has been a great conversation. I want to run something by you to see if it fits into what you just defined as leadership. It's the first 4 kind of steps in my leadership philosophy, and it sounds like these are things that you were saying. First, everybody needs to understand the purpose of the organization they work for. Second, people need to understand why working for that organization is more than just collecting a paycheck, right? The benefit of the environment, benefit of working there. And then third, and
Ty, could I go in and just say one thing, because you're so right. So here's what I see happening in intercollegiate athletics, and it's a big concern of mine, that there's people involved in this now, and it's not about the student athlete, these young people. It's about position, power, and money. And that's what really concerns me, because I do, and I know a lot of great people in intercollegiate athletics that have the student and the student athlete's best interest at heart. But then there are others that do not. And, when we start hearing and being criticized for a lot of different things that we do or we don't do, it's because of that creates those kind of feelings. And it's unfortunate that it's not shared upon all the great work that all these people are doing to really benefit these students and these student athletes. And it's far beyond their 4 or 5 years they're with us. It's about a lifetime. And when they could come up to us in the grocery store or at the airport, say, Mr. Anderson, I hope you remember me. I played this. I am now doing this. This is my significant other. This is my family. And thank you for doing what you did to support that. That's our reward.
And I imagine that's very rewarding when something like that happens. staying focused on that, what's best for the student athlete, right? I always heard Dutch say that when I used to help him out with the annual meeting in the institute. Everything we do needs to answer the question, is this good for the student athlete? And it sounds like you're saying that there's been, and I've seen there's been a lot of veering away from that, in terms of the bottom line controlling everything, whether it be media enterprises or whatever it is. Do you have a suggestion? If you could make a suggestion to those in the chair, to the power brokers that are out there, with money being so important and being such a driver, how can you shake somebody's focus from the bottom line back to the well-being of the student athlete? And that's not to say that there aren't a whole lot of people who are still focused on the well-being of the student athlete, but how do we go about that? I guess changing that focus.
Well, it sounds like I'm advertising for them, but Simon Sinek, when we all talk about start with why.
Right.
First thing in the morning, last thing at night. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because we're doing it to develop and improve and help these young people that we bring to campus be better people. And if we bring them, because we're bringing them because they are superior athletes. But we're also bringing them because they have the capacity, and they've shown this, and that they have the heart, the soul, and they have the minds to be a superior athlete. And we need to take all of that and not only use it for their athletic prowess, but also we need to do it because academically and socially they are going to be the leaders of our country and of our world, because now we're dealing with a global society, and our athletes are global. So if we take all that in place, we have a platform that many other people don't, and that we could develop these people to be great folks, great leaders, great citizens. And I mean, now in our country and in the world, I mean, we need these young people more than ever.
I agree. That's an excellent statement for us to wrap up this conversation on. I think you've given good insight from your time in college athletics and even your time before that at big institutions like Xerox. And of course, you worked at the United Negro College Fund and YMCA of Greater East Bay. And I imagine all those times helped you develop your philosophy on leadership that helped you go to the great career that you had. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Well, Ty, thank you for having me. Truly appreciate your work.
That was Kevin Anderson. He's the former director of athletics at Maryland and at United States Military Academy. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.